They always underestimated you. Maybe they thought you were just another face in the crowd, someone who wouldn't notice the patterns, the shifts, the way the air changed before anyone else could feel it. But you did. You saw through the illusions, the cracks in the foundation, long before they became undeniable. It wasn't just a feeling, it was certainty. The kind of knowing that doesn't need proof. The kind that makes you a step ahead while everyone else is still playing catch-up. They called it paranoia. They called it overthinking. They told you that you were imagining things. But time is your witness. Because every single thing they swore would never happen, it's unfolding exactly as you knew it would. And now, they're scrambling, trying to make sense of what you already saw coming. This was never about luck. This was never about chance. This was about you, your vision, your instincts, your connection to something beyond what they could ever understand. And that's what shakes them to their core. They never feared what you knew. They feared what you are. Because you were never just another piece in their game. You were the outlier, the one who doesn't just follow the script, you rewrite it. And now, as everything crumbles around them, they realize the truth too late. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand apart. The warnings were there, yet they moved forward, unshaken, convinced of their own infallibility. No need to convince, no need to debate, just the truth laid bare. Then, as if the air itself shifted, the sequence began. It wasn't immediate. At first, the fractures were subtle, easy to overlook. But soon, hesitation crept into their voices. Stolen glances betrayed their doubt, and the ground beneath them started to shift. The very ones who had once dismissed every cautionary word now found themselves grasping for explanations, clawing at certainty that no longer existed. Desperation replaced arrogance as their grip loosened on the illusion they built. And now they see it. Undeniable, inevitable. The weight of knowing hangs heavy in the silence they refuse to acknowledge. Now the realization settles in, slow and suffocating. Fear and denial intertwine, a battle between their pride and the truth they can no longer ignore. What was once dismissed as speculation now stands as fact, towering over them. The echoes of their own disbelief linger in conversations they can't erase. Words spoken in certainty now turned to regret. They replay those moments, searching for an escape, an alternative explanation, anything to make it all mean something else. But deep down, the recognition is there. The knowledge that this was never chance. This wasn't luck. This wasn't coincidence. And that terrifies them more than anything. Every warning, every truth, preserved in time, disregarded only to be rediscovered too late, dismissed as noise, ignored as meaningless, until reality came crashing down, undeniable and inescapable. Now there is no room for doubt. The events that were so easily brushed aside have unfolded exactly as foretold. The betrayal, the unraveling, the inevitable collapse, it is all there, undeniable, irreversible. They scroll through the remnants of their certainty, looking for an exit from what they swore would never happen. But the past doesn't bend, it doesn't yield. It stands as a monument to every misplaced word, every misplaced belief. And that realization, the inescapable finality of truth, is what haunts them now. But if it is from God, you will not be able to stop these men. You will only find yourselves fighting against God. Acts 5:39. A tower built on lies can only stand for so long. At first it looks strong, unshakable, towering high, like it was meant to last forever. But the thing about false foundations, they crack under the weight of truth. And when truth starts pushing in, when reality begins to break through, No amount of patchwork can hold the structure together. They thought they were untouchable. They thought they could rewrite history, control the story, erase what they had done. But let me tell you something. You can't outrun truth, and you sure can't outrun God. At one point, their voices filled the air with confidence. They spoke with certainty, mocking, laughing, twisting the facts to fit their version of the story. They dismissed every warning, every sign, every moment where they had a chance to course correct. Because in their minds, they were the ones in control. But control is an illusion, and now they see it slipping through their fingers like sand. And now they scramble. Now they stutter. The ones who were once so bold, so sure, so loud in their accusations and dismissals, they have fallen silent. Because certainty is easy when there are no consequences. Confidence is effortless when there's no accountability. But once the cracks start to show, once the truth starts seeping through, the boldest voices become the quietest whispers. They rewrite their words, revise their stance, shift their story just enough to make it seem like they were never wrong. But the past isn't something you can bend. It's not a story you can edit in real time. The things they said, the actions they took, the way they stood so firm in their deception, it's all written in stone now. And the worst part, people remember. Because deception only works when people are willing to forget. And they counted on that. They counted on people losing interest, moving on, letting go. But there are too many witnesses, too many who watched it unfold in real time, too many who heard their words, saw their actions, and are not so easily fooled by the sudden shift in their tone. See, they thought they had the power, but power built on lies is borrowed time, and the debt has come due. They thought they were the ones controlling the pieces, but the game has turned against them, and now they're the ones being cornered. And you don't even have to do anything. You don't have to expose them. You don't have to fight to prove yourself. You don't have to set the record straight, because the truth is doing that for you. And nothing is more terrifying to them than knowing they can't control what's coming next. Because once the illusion falls, once the smoke clears, once the dust settles, there will be nothing left standing but the truth. And they will have no choice but to sit in the wreckage of their own making. So they try to adjust the script. They weren't wrong, not really. They just had their doubts. They never dismissed anything outright, only questioned it. They weren't against you, just neutral observers. But no matter how delicately they attempt to thread this new version, the truth remains. They weren't passive bystanders. They were resolute in their disbelief, unwavering in their ridicule. And now, as they fumble to reconstruct their past stance, they find themselves unable to escape the weight of their own history. The eyes watching them are too many, the proof too clear, and the reality too sharp to ignore. There's no room for evasion now. It's far too late for that. And the memories of their own certainty, now proven false, will follow them long after the dust settles. They set the plan in motion, confident that you would crumble under the weight of their deception. A network of whispers, well-placed distortions, calculated misdirections, all of it designed to trap you in the very downfall they orchestrated. But illusions have a habit of turning on their creators, and soon enough, the very web they spun began unraveling from within. The power they thought they held over the story slipped through their fingers, their grip on control weakened by their own miscalculations. The same voices that once carried their lies started to waver. The same allies they leaned on started to question. And the chaos they had planned for you, it turned inward, consuming them instead. You never had to fight for your truth. It stood firm on its own, while they scrambled, desperate to escape the inferno of their own making. When the storm has swept by, the wicked are gone, but the righteous stand firm forever. Proverbs 10:25. A house built on sand may stand for a season, but when the storm comes, when the winds rage and the waters rise, that house crumbles into nothing. And that's exactly what's happening now. They thought they were the builders, the architects of the story, crafting a perfect illusion that no one could see through. But illusions don't hold weight, and now, under the weight of truth, their entire foundation is cracking. They were so sure they had control. They were so certain they had designed the perfect deception. But let me tell you something, God don't bless no mess. They thought they were the ones pulling the strings, the masterminds, the unseen hands shaping the narrative to their advantage. But they forgot one thing. You can't outmaneuver divine order. You can't twist reality forever. You can't keep the truth buried when the truth was never theirs to own in the first place. Lies, they have an expiration date. They may flourish for a while. They may even convince the weak-minded for a season, but in the end, all deception has to face the fire, and the fire is here. Now, they stand in the ruins of what they built, watching helplessly as the world they tried to control slips right through their fingers, the ones who once believed them. They've walked away, the allies they once relied on. Gone, vanished like smoke in the wind, and that is what's eating them alive, because the thing they craved most wasn't power, wasn't influence, it was validation. They needed people to believe in the story they crafted. They needed their words to carry weight, their lies to take root. But the soil was never fertile, and now every falsehood they planted has withered, leaving behind nothing but dust. They tried to copy what wasn't meant for them. They mimicked, they imitated, they studied your every move, convinced that if they could just steal your essence, they could recreate the force that makes you who you are. But imitation is a cheap counterfeit. You can't steal anointing, you can't manufacture divine favor. And the more they tried to mold themselves into what they thought you were, the more they lost sight of themselves. Now, they are hollow. Now, they are lost. The mask has slipped, the disguise is gone, and there is nothing left underneath but a fragile shell of what they used to be. They thought they could take shortcuts to greatness. They thought they could manipulate their way into something sacred. But what they didn't understand is that what is truly ordained cannot be copied, cannot be stolen, cannot be touched. And so they stand, broken, exposed, desperate to find a way back to the illusion they once controlled. But the illusion is gone. The truth is standing tall. And you are still here, still rising, still walking in purpose, while they crumble under the weight of their own deception. Because when the storm comes, when the floodwaters rise, when the winds shake, everything that was never meant to stand, only what is real, remains. And you were never the one who had to worry. It started as curiosity, a passing fixation. But the more they watched, the more they lost themselves. The shift was slow at first, a creeping detachment from their own essence. They borrowed, imitated, absorbed, convinced that if they could replicate your presence, they could claim the power behind it. But a borrowed flame never burns the same. What they thought was mastery became erosion, a slow dismantling of everything they once were. And now they are left with fragments of an identity they no longer recognize. They tried to mold themselves into something they were never meant to be. And in doing so, they severed ties with the very foundation that once gave them purpose. But you never strayed. While they chased a mirage, you walked forward, unbothered, untouched. And now, as they stand in the wreckage of their own undoing, they realize too late, this path was never meant for them. They tried every tactic, every whispered word, every calculated move designed to break you. The games were intricate, the traps set with precision, the betrayals placed in just the right spots. They were so sure they could control the outcome, so sure that their strategy would bring you down. But none of it worked. The damage they expected never came. The unraveling they anticipated never happened. And now they are left with nothing but their own unraveling. They can't make sense of it. How nothing they did was enough. How every attempt to shift your fate crumbled before it could take hold. Their desperation has turned to panic, their confidence into sleepless nights. Because now, as every move they made circles back to them, they are faced with the truth they never considered. They were never the ones in control. And now, the reckoning they've spent so long avoiding has finally arrived, and there is no escape from the weight of what they have set in motion. For they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. Hosea 8:7. They thought they could plant deceit and harvest victory. They believed they could lay down traps and never fall into one themselves. But the Lord is not mocked. What a man sows, that he shall also reap. They built their empire on deception, their house on shifting sand, and now the flood has come. The storm they sent out to consume you has turned, and now it chases them with a vengeance. They were so sure, they held all the power, so certain that they had outmaneuvered every consequence. But there's one thing they forgot. You can't play chess with the Almighty and expect to win. They were architects of their own destruction, every move calculated to bring about your downfall. They schemed in secret, whispered in the dark, wove stories with such skill that even they started to believe the lies. They called it strategy. They called it wisdom. But let me tell you something. There is no wisdom, no understanding, no counsel that can stand against the Lord. Their plans, shattered, their illusions, exposed. They dug a pit so deep, and now the ground has collapsed beneath them, and they are falling into the very darkness they prepared for you. Oh, they thought they were untouchable. They walked with confidence, dripping in arrogance, moving through the world as if they had already won. They surrounded themselves with enablers, people who fed their pride, reinforced their delusion, whispered sweet affirmations in their ears. No one will ever find out. No one will ever stop you. But the whispers have gone silent. Those who once cheered them on are backing away. And now, when they look around for help, for rescue, for even a single outstretched hand, there is nothing. There is no safety net, no escape route. The door has closed, and there is no getting out. Because here's what they never understood. You cannot curse what God has blessed. You cannot block what heaven has ordained. You, the one they tried to break, the one they plotted against, the one they swore would never rise. You are still here, not just standing, but thriving, not just surviving, but flourishing. See, they thought they were battling against you, but they weren't fighting flesh and blood. They were fighting against a purpose, against a calling, against a divine assignment. And that is a battle they were never going to win. They wanted you down bad. They threw everything they had, every weapon, every rumor, every backhanded betrayal. They spent so much time trying to control the narrative, to shape the story in their favor, to bury the truth so deep that no one would ever find it. But let me tell you something about truth. It doesn't need defense. It doesn't need an army. It doesn't need to fight for recognition. Because when the time is right, truth stands up on its own. And when it does, every lie collapses like a house of cards. And that's exactly what's happening right now. They were the ones who created this storm, and now they are caught in it. They were the ones who turned their hands to destruction, and now destruction is eating through everything they built. And you don't even have to lift a finger. You don't have to seek revenge. You don't have to prove a single thing. All you have to do is keep walking, keep rising, keep moving forward, because the battle has already been won. You were chosen for something greater. You were never meant to fit in, never meant to be controlled, never meant to bow to their plans. And now, as they sit in the ruins of what they thought was their victory, they finally understand. They never had power over you. They never even stood a chance. They were never the ones stirring the pot, never the ones leading the charge. They just stood by, watching, observing, letting it happen. It wasn't their fight after all. They distanced themselves, convinced that silence made them neutral. But neutrality is a choice, and in the absence of action, complicity took root. They dismissed the warnings, brushed off the signs, laughed at the idea that things could turn this way. But now, as the dust settles, as the truth stands undeniable, they find themselves grappling with the weight of their own inaction. They replay conversations in their minds, recalling the moments they could have acknowledged, the truths they could have recognized. The clarity they lacked before is cutting now. The realization that the signs were always there. They just chose not to see them. And the worst part? You never needed their validation. You knew long before they did, and that knowledge haunts them in ways they'll never say out loud. They won't admit it, won't give voice to the regret that lingers beneath the surface. But it's there, in the hesitation, in the way they avoid your gaze, in the silent understanding that the truth was always within reach. They just weren't ready to face it. They swore they were indifferent, convinced the past was behind them, yet their eyes never stray for long. Every update, every subtle move, they monitor in silence, lurking behind veils of anonymity, searching for a sign that their efforts weren't in vain. They tell themselves it's curiosity, nothing more, just passing glances. But the truth is sharper. They are desperate to know. Did their schemes succeed? Did the cracks they tried to carve ever form? Did their orchestrated chaos leave a lasting mark? And the realization that nothing unraveled, that nothing fractured, burns more than any loss they anticipated. Worse still, they watch as success unfolds, untouched by their interference, unmoved by their presence, and that alone becomes the very thing they can't escape. What started as a quest for confirmation has turned into something else entirely, an obsession they can't shake, a fixation they refuse to acknowledge. They analyze every move, not to celebrate failure, but to decipher resilience. What was once an attempt to destroy has twisted into a search for understanding. But the silence, the refusal to engage, the absence of reaction, it undoes them more than any confrontation ever could. Because in the end, the thing they fear the most isn't losing. It's realizing they never mattered in the first place. They built their story carefully, brick by brick, weaving details so seamlessly that even they began to believe the illusion. For a while, it worked. Every word positioned, every distortion placed with precision, until the cracks appeared. Not immediately, not in a single moment, but in gradual, undeniable shifts. Conversations that once flowed freely became hesitant. Glances once filled with certainty, now edged with doubt. Those who once stood in unwavering support have grown distant, hesitant, no longer so eager to defend what they once accepted without question. The unraveling isn't loud, isn't sudden. It's slow, agonizing, impossible to control. They feel it in the shifting stares, in the subtle pauses before responses, in the energy that once favored them, but now recoils. They scramble to contain it, to repair what's slipping through their fingers, to remind people of the version they so carefully crafted. But there is no reclaiming control when the weight of truth presses in from all sides. The more they try to manipulate, the more the threads slip away, and the one thing they never accounted for, the one thing they never believed possible, has come to pass. They have lost control of the story. And the worst part? They know there's nothing they can do to stop it. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. They thought the battle was theirs to control. They thought their words, their schemes, their desperate attempts to pull you into their mess would shake you. But let me tell you something. The most powerful move you ever made was your refusal to play. They set the stage, they crafted the narrative, they waited for you to show up to defend yourself, to prove them wrong, to fall into their trap. But you stood still. You let them talk. You let them throw their stones. You let them waste their breath. And it is driving them mad. Because here's what they don't understand. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. Silence is strength. And when you are walking with divine favor, you don't have to chase down every rumor. You don't have to explain yourself to people who were committed to misunderstanding you from the start. You don't have to fight battles that were already won before they even began. So now, they wait. They wait for a sign that they got to you, that their words left a scar, that their attempts to break you weren't in vain. But there is no reaction, no sign of struggle, no proof that their arrows hit their target. And that right there, that's what's destroying them. Because the moment they realized they couldn't shake you, they lost the only power they ever had. They tried to control the story, but the weight of their own deceit is pressing down on them now. The rumors they spread, they're suffocating under them. The webs they wove, they're tangled in their own lies. They thought they were weaving a trap for you, but instead, they walked right into one of their own making. And as they look around, desperate for the validation they once thrived on, they see nothing but the emptiness of their own creation. See, they wanted a war. They wanted to see you struggle, to watch you react, to make you question yourself. But what they never realized is that the strongest warriors don't always fight with swords. They fight with discipline. They fight with faith. And they fight by not fighting at all. Because you don't have to respond when heaven already has. You don't have to explain yourself when the truth is already working in your favor. And you don't have to engage with people who were never meant to have access to your spirit in the first place. So let them watch. Let them refresh their pages. Let them wait in the shadows. Let them whisper among themselves. You owe them nothing. Not a word. Not an explanation. Not even a glance in their direction. Because while they obsess over what you're doing, you're too busy winning to even notice they exist. And that's what ruins them the most. Something has shifted, and they feel it in the air. The weight of their own choices presses down on them in ways they never expected. No confrontation, no final battle, just the slow realization that they lost before they even started. They thought they had control, thought they could dictate the outcome, but you moved forward while they stayed frozen in the wreckage they created. The confidence they once carried is now brittle, their words careful, their presence diminished. Every action has led them here, and there is no reversing it. What once felt like an endless cycle of manipulation has finally ended. Not because they let go, but because they were left behind. They no longer have access to you, no longer have influence, no longer hold any place in your world. And that is the consequence they never saw coming. While they are forced to sit in the echoes of what they've done, you rise, unshaken, unbothered, untouchable. This is the reality now, and there is no rewriting it. They are nothing more than a lesson in self-destruction, proof that truth always stands while deception crumbles. And what's left of their influence? Nothing but a fading memory.